Nope. What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be taking a look at My Friendly Neighborhood, the next new mascot horror game. How was that for an intro? Was my voice YouTube enough for that intro? I'm trying to practice so I can get better at intros. So, mascot horror. Ever since Five Nights at Freddy's, a new genre of horror game was popularized. This genre involves taking child-friendly mascots, things like animatronics, toys, dolls, or television show characters, and turning them into creepy antagonists, usually with some sort of dark and sinister agenda. To be honest, I find this genre to be a bit oversaturated and uninspired, but when I saw the trailer for My Friendly Neighborhood, it looked like it had a bit more soul than some of the other mascot horror games that I've seen, and I also liked that it was a nod to Sesame Street, so I figured I would give it a shot. I generally like to play games on harder difficulties, so I started with survival mode, which claims to be a tough experience. I was also dressed as a spooky vampire to celebrate Spooky Game, but my chat apparently didn't get it, so I went and had a spooky vampire feast to try to make it more obvious. They still didn't get it. When we start the game, we find out that we're playing as a man named Gordon J. O'Brien who works for a property management company. He's informed that an abandoned television studio mysteriously regained power and is playing its TV show over normal TV programming. Gordon is tasked with disabling the broadcasting tower on top of a hotel building in order to save television. Before leaving his truck, we find a necklace that Gordon claims he got in the war, letting us know that he is also a war veteran. The game begins in the official My Friendly Neighborhood parking lot, where we're surrounded by a few different buildings, and the only accessible building is Hotel 123, so that's where we head first. I walk up to the front desk and ring the little gold bell, and we are greeted by a talking sock named Ricky. This isn't—
Raise the curtain!
Ah!
Bring up the lights! The neighborhood is coming to town!
For some reason, Gordon seems to have no problem with the receptionist being a sentient sock creature and acts like it's completely normal. Ricky finishes the conversation by vomiting out a keycard for Stage 4, which is the filming set. Thanks, I guess? Since our goal is to reach the top of this hotel, we try the elevator, but it's sealed with some sort of purple gunk, so instead we just go back outside and head over to explore Stage 4, the filming studio. Inside Stage 4, we have our first encounter with a jock-like puppet named Norman. I guess I took the title My Friendly Neighborhood too seriously because I walked up to him thinking he'd be a friendly NPC like Ricky, but instead he attacked me and killed me. And since I hadn't saved yet, I had to restart the whole game. Classic pasta, dying on purpose for content. After sneaking past Mr. Norman on playthrough number 2, we find a My Friendly Neighborhood script that details a character named Pearl who cuts people in line for a pair of earrings. We encounter a few other types of enemy puppets while exploring and notice that they all have this weird habit of talking to themselves.
La la and up, la la and down, shimmy shimmy, swivel swivel, twirl twirl, la 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 la.
Next, we find our way into a basement room that contains our first weapon, a wrench. Time to smack some puppets. This weapon doesn't do a ton of damage, but it can stun enemies long enough for you to run past them. We finally find our first safe room, which means no more restarting when we die. Yay! Saving requires 1 coin, so your saves are limited, just like in old school survival horror. We find a map which colors rooms green only when we've fully looted them, the red rooms indicating that you've missed some items. There's also a storage box here, and we find out that the game has a Tetris-like inventory system, which is a callback to Resident Evil 4. After saving, we stumble into a dressing room where Ricky annoys us some more and tells us to watch out for a diva named Pearl, who was mentioned in the script we read earlier. We also find a cool gun called the Stenographer that shoots letters at enemies in alphabetical order. This is simultaneously one of the dumbest and coolest guns I've ever seen in a video game, I think. We also get introduced to the taping mechanic, which allows you to use limited rolls of duct tape to prevent puppets from respawning when you revisit previous areas. This is another callback to a mechanic in Resident Evil 1 Remastered where you could burn zombies' bodies to prevent them from coming back to life later on. Remember the room where we got the wrench? Well, it had a target in it, which we can now shoot with the gun we just picked up. Our reward is a key with a blue circle on it, which opens— you guessed it, blue circle doors, woo! After a near-death experience with a puppet, I grab some ammo and a healing potion, which unfortunately only raises my health to caution status. Survival mode is definitely delivering on the difficulty so far. Time to go through the blue circle doors. We end up on the main stage for My Friendly Neighborhood, which is a large open area riddled with puppets, and we finally get to meet Pearl, who ends up being a giant piñata-like bird with no eyeballs. I expected her to chase me around, but she was surprisingly passive, just kinda walking around chillin', eating from garbage cans, and checking herself out in the mirror. Slay Queen. There's an overarching puzzle in this zone that requires you to find 8 letter blocks and place them on this pedestal. This area took me quite a bit of time to complete, navigating around to find each block while also trying not to die to the angry puppet people. I wasted a lot of ammo during this segment because I kept having to travel back to the same areas and deal with the same enemies, but after a lot of faulty navigation and a death or two, I managed to collect all of the letters. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to figure out that they spell neighbor, while Pearl silently sat next to me and judged me for my poor puzzle-solving skills. The letter puzzle gave me an envelope, which I exchanged at the mailbox for a crank. Here we get to see some crucial character lore for Gordon, which is that he has extremely hairy arms. Things we know about Gordon so far. 1, he's a war veteran. 2, hairy arms. Great. Anyway, time to leave this puppet-infested hellscape of an area and find out where this crank goes. We head back to the parking lot where it's now nighttime, spooky, and follow some neon signs to an area that says secret entrance where we're conveniently able to use the metal crank. The lid below us opens and we fall down into a slide. I don't know what I expected, but that wasn't it. The slide leads us to the next big zone, which is an underground sewer-like area. ABC 123. Thank you. We run into Ricky the deranged sock puppet yet again, who clearly seems to be stalking us at this point, and he informs us that the sewers are owned by Ray, a janitor puppet with anger issues who likes clobbering people with wrenches. Fun. Sewer levels in video games tend to always be my downfall because they're notoriously maze-like and I am awful at navigation. So naturally, I get lost within the first 5 seconds of exploring this area. I ran into this cool guy poster and I asked my chat to press 1, 2, 3 if they thought I was cool like this guy. Next to the poster we find the game Shotgun. Woo! This weapon is called the Novelist and it one-shots most of the puppets in the game, but it has very limited ammo reserves. We test it out on this poor wacky-armed guy, and it does not disappoint. I stumble into a puzzle room with some shapes and clocks and levers, and I have no idea what's going on, but I assume that I need to go find some other items to complete this puzzle, so I just leave and find another save room. My inventory is getting pretty thick at this point, and I go ahead and grab another map, which I will stare at intermittently to pretend like I'm actually using it, but actually not comprehending it at all. After wandering around aimlessly for a bit, I manage to find Ray's workshop, but when I turn on the light and try to say hi to him, he flees into one of the sewer tunnels. Wow, I just wanted to be friends. There's a script nearby that explains that someone made fun of Ray's plumbing skills, so he stopped doing his job out of embarrassment. Poor guy. When we leave his workshop, he starts spawning in different tunnel entrances, requiring you to either avoid those particular paths or expend ammo to push him back. I returned to an area where I duct taped some puppets earlier and find out that they still talk to themselves even when they're taped. Here, Junebug the puppet teaches us about the magic of numbers.
I learned my numbers when I was a kid. Here, let me show you how I learned. Hold your hands up in the air, and now bring them down in front of your face. You see? That's 2 hands. Now, take one of your hands, put it in your mouth, and swallow as hard as you can.
Wait.
Now grab one hand by your mouth and one hand outside.
Wait, what? Thanks, Junebug. I know how to count now. In the locker room, I finally find the item I need to complete the punch card puzzle, so I plug it into the power source in Ray's workshop, and I'm ambushed by a Norman. Oh. Norman's here. I mean, Norman's like one of the weakest mobs. I don't care. I'll just wrench him. I don't give a frick. I told my chat that this game would be spooky, but what's really spooky is how long it takes me to figure out puzzles in horror games. So each shape represents the clock hand moving a certain number of ticks, as indicated by this paper, and you have to combine these shapes to make each clock hand land on its respective number. After solving the puzzle, the blast door unlocks, and we get to explore another side of the sewers. Yay, more areas for me to get lost in! In a hallway with ominous red lighting, I find a key that opens lockboxes scattered around the sewers, which apparently contain fuses that allow me to open some electronically powered doors. I don't know what it is about installing fuses and fuse boxes, but so many horror games really just seem to love giving you this specific task. Once we have every fuse, we're able to open the door to a creepy statue room, and one of the statues is nice enough to give us some bolt cutters. But, naturally, I have no idea what these are used for. So, after another long period of wandering and complaining about how I suck at navigating in video games, we finally run into the chain door. Yay! This door leads us to a fancy-looking elevator, and I am just absolutely thrilled to be out of the sewers. The first room we see has a hallway with some TVs that show My Friendly Neighborhood being played over top of a talk show. The corridor then opens up into a huge lobby, the layout of which is reminiscent of the Raccoon City Police Station from Resident Evil 2. Yet another cool survival horror reference. Entering the doorway to the right, we encounter a new smaller type of puppet that clings to walls. Is it gonna attack?
Oh man, that's gonna hurt.
There's also this yellow puppet that took an entire shotgun shell to the face without dying, so he's extremely tanky. After clearing the room, we find a peculiar looking golden statue. Aww.
This is like something from a horror movie. The sort of thing that moves as soon as you turn your back.
Thanks for the foreshadowing, Gordon. We find the next save area, which I was very happy about because I hadn't saved in quite a while and was on the verge of losing a good chunk of progress. There's also a yellow mask in the room. Thanks, I hate it. We go through a different set of double doors in the lobby and are greeted by a bunch of dead puppets surrounding a weapon called the punctuation, which is the game's grenade. Moving through the area, we find that we're in a theater where there's another mask. Thanks, I once again hate it. Checking out the second floor of the lobby, we find a room full of cubicles that is occupied by a giant chonker of a puppet who attempts to charge at us and smacks into walls. Cute. After dodging the chungus, we move on to the next room, and I start to realize that the paintings in this building are all puppetified versions of real works, like Saturn devouring his son and Christina's World. There's even a staircase with a ton of different references to paintings. Cool stuff. Yay, another map I won't use. This area has a lot of backtracking, so I went ahead and taped the tanky yellow puppet from earlier, blasted some more mini puppets, and then ended up in a game room. Good thing I'm a professional gamer. We ring the bell and some targets pop us for us to shoot, reminiscent of the Resident Evil 4 shooting range, which I loved. Our reward for shooting all the targets is a couple of health potions, which I can't fit into my inventory. If I were smart, I probably would have stored the masks in the storage box that is located inside of every safe room, but I'm pasta and I don't always do the smart thing. I also learned much later on in the game that you can get rid of items that have a check mark over them indicating that you no longer need them, like these bolt cutters taking up 4 slots. Oops. The big chonker has made its way to the lobby where it's trying to eat its own hands. I guess it must have listened to Junebug's counting lessons, but we sneak past it and find our way into the set for the eating game. Here we find a script that introduces Goblet, the name of the chonker puppet that has been chasing us around in this area. As part of the eating game, she's meant to identify specific ingredients and dishes that she's presented with, but instead she just ends up eating everything in sight. Honestly, she ate. We also managed to find a game piece that goes to the game room, so we head back to play a board game with Norman, who looks dead, but apparently is still alive enough to smash his fist against the table angrily. Norman, it's not that serious, it's just a board game, chill. The game ends up being pretty simple. The number on your card tells you how many spaces to move, and you have to reach the end before Norman, with a few special spaces that have varying effects. Norman flops over in defeat, and we're rewarded with the red diamond key. The first red diamond door nets us another ugly mask. The second red diamond door nets us, you guessed it, another ugly mask. And the third red diamond door gives us a place to finally get rid of these awful things. It turns out that each mask represents a puppet that we've seen around the game, and we have to place them on the correct statue according to this riddle. Or you can just brute force trial and error it if you're a caveman gamer like me. The reward for this puzzle is a stack of dice, which we use back in the game room to open a safe. And the safe contains the hydrostatic canister. I have no idea what this is or why we need it, but thanks. The last red diamond door leads us to the projection room, which overlooks the theater we were in earlier. There are 4 projectors, but only 2 of them currently have film in them. We start with projector number 4, which plays a scene from a black and white film. One of my chatters informed me that this is a scene from a 1950 film noir called DOA. Next, we play projector number 3, and our good friend Goblet waltzes into the theater to watch the show for a good 5 seconds before turning around and leaving. Okay, bye. This film is just a bunch of shots of the puppets waving their arms around like wacky inflatable tube men, and it plays on repeat infinitely. I mean, I guess I see why Goblet left. After some more aimless wandering, we find a door connected to the eating room set where that one green canister goes. This tank fixes an elevator that leads us up to the CEO's office, where we find a key that will unlock the front door to the parking lot. The CEO has a giant portrait of himself hanging up on the wall, which I guess is just the kind of thing that rich people do, and there's a sneaky button on his desk that reveals a secret passage. We find some loot in here, including a cheat tape, which is used to enable gameplay mods after your first playthrough. Before we use the key to leave the building, I head back to the projector room so I can play a film reel that I found. We get another visit from Goblet, the film gal, but this time she stays to watch the whole thing. Relating back to Gordon's history as a war veteran, this film shows a bunch of atrocities and negative consequences caused by war, and Goblet does not look happy about it.
Is she depressed?
We head down into the theater, and to my surprise, Goblet doesn't attack us. Instead, Gordon sits down next to her and attempts to comfort her by talking about his love for cinema.
Get it down sometimes, huh? First time I ever saw a movie as a kid, there was this scene of a man riding into this big blazing sunset, and I remember when it came up, it just caught me.
Goblet just awkwardly sits there and watches the screen silently, but after I did this, I got an achievement saying we helped Goblet. So apparently, we cured her depression with this one simple trick: being friendly. When we're finally ready to leave the building, we head back out to the lobby and are confronted by a giant pink mommy wall that reminds me of a feminine version of the monster Pegasus uses in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. I have no idea why this thing is here, and I never found any lore to explain it, but it's blocking my exit and I haven't saved in a bit, so I've got to try my best not to die to the puppets it shoots out of its giant crusty lips. Luckily, I stocked up on shotgun shells in preparation for exactly this type of moment, and 5 shots plus a grenade was all it took to take it down. I head over to the park entrance and realize that there is a lockbox that I can open with the red diamond key, which allows me to power the gate and finally get into the park. It opens up into a small hedge maze with some cool lighting, and we immediately run into our favorite annoying sock friend, you guessed it, Ricky. In this gaslighting session, Ricky calls Gordon a bully, commenting on how he has been blasting his way through hordes of puppets who just want to be his friend.
I'm not a bully. Surprised you're not a detective.
He's gaslighting.
They're always bashing down doors and brandishing guns. Or maybe a GI. Give you a chance to rampage through some small defenseless...
Don't say that, Ricky.
Say what?
Don't talk about the war.
Why not? Just saying. Seems like exactly the sort of place you...
Way to prove his point, Gordon. After that pointless exchange, we find a much-needed save room and head over to the playground where we find that the seesaws don't have physics? They can give Gordon arm hair, but they can't make functional seesaws. Leaving that scam of a playground, we continue onward to find some doghouses, which seem suspiciously foreshadowy, as well as a greenhouse that contains some sort of chemical mixer. The instructions tell us that we can use this machine to make a solvent that will unstick the purple goo blocking the elevator from the beginning of the game. After 3 zones, it finally feels like we're making some real progress. Unfortunately, the machine also requires 3 missing materials with no indication of where they're located, which means that it's backtracking time. There's a nifty shortcut that leads from the park down into the sewer, and a couple new doors here become available with a green key we got from the greenhouse. One of them houses the film developer, which is one of the 3 materials needed for the chemical mixer, and the other door is the home of our old angry friend Ray. When we enter, Ray is doing his absolute best to fix the sewer's plumbing problem by smacking random things with a wrench, but gets startled when Gordon walks in and he flees. We decide to help the poor guy and turn this giant orange wheel that seemingly fixes the problem, which prompts Ray to come back out and see what's happening. Gordon then shares some brilliant words of wisdom with Ray, telling him that you can't actually solve everything by just hitting stuff.
You can't just clam up and start hitting everything with a wrench. That won't fix anything.
So not only did we cure Goblet's depression, but we also fixed Ray's anger issues. What am I, a puppet therapist? Backtracking through the sewer here was really making me feel the survival difficulty, as I was running low on resources and struggling to get past some of these puppets without dying. I managed to escape the sewers with a whopping 6 bullets and almost no health, and when I take the elevator back to the park, I am gracefully greeted by a new enemy type. The Nightmare Doggo. That's an actual dog. Cute, but not exactly what I want to see right now when I'm one hit away from dying. But I'm luckily able to slip past him and head back to Goblet's building to open another green door with our new key. This leads us to a recording studio where we end up in a desperate fight for our lives. I managed to take down the tanky yellow puppet with the last of my ammo, only to be glomped by a Norman, who succeeds in killing us. Damn. On my second attempt, I use a grenade to take both puppets out with one blow and then celebrate by smacking the victory gong. This room contains the trumpet polish, which is the second of the 3 materials we need for the chemical mixer. For the last material, we head back to the playground with the cursed seesaws, avoid the nightmare pupper, and find a puzzle that involves placing pegs in their correct spots on this board. It's actually a map of the park area, so you have to find images of each character around the park to determine where each peg is placed, or you can do it the pasta way and brute force it. This nets us the final material for the chemical mixer. Woo! On our way back, there's some more doggo avoiding, and I realize that I've just been carrying this bag of dog food around in my inventory. I place it in the food bowls next to the dog houses, and we get lots of puppers. Oh, see, this whole time I thought it was the same dog. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize that it was meant to be multiple dogs.
See, you're not so bad after all.
This prevents them from spawning and attacking you around the map, so it would have been helpful if I figured this out before I did the entire greenhouse puzzle, but you know, pasta gaming, I guess. The chemical machine requires a few very simple button presses that I somehow managed to mess up like 5 times in a row, but we eventually get the jam solvent. 1, 2. First try. For the final segment of the game, my cam position was covering my health and ammo counter, but you can just go ahead and assume that I'm constantly out of ammo and about to die, because that's basically how it was at this point in the game. So the moment of truth, we head back to the purple goo elevator in the lobby, use the solvent, and head to the roof to finally deactivate the broadcasting tower. Or maybe not. I really expected this to be the end of the game, but we're presented with a door with some scribbles on it, which leads us into a palace made out of cardboard. Before I narrate this next section, I just want to say that this was my favorite zone in the entire game. The concept is just really well executed, and they do a lot of really neat things with the aesthetic of it. Going through the first poorly colored cardboard door we see, we are greeted with some of the most beautiful music to ever bless my eardrums. Truly the Beethoven of my friendly neighborhood. I'm guessing this pianist is the puppet who owns this zone, but we aren't able to do anything with him yet, so I go off and explore more of the area and find a script that tells us his name is Arnold. We then find the kitchen, complete with marble countertops and state-of-the-art appliances, and we see a recipe on the wall that cooks us a key. Banana plus orange juice plus chili equals key. Got it. Welcome to Cooking with Pasta. The first thing we're going to do here is microwave some milk to make some cheese. This is actually my favorite way to make cheese. And then we're going to go ahead and slice the cheese into a banana. Perfect. While that cheese banana is chilling in the fridge, we're going to go ahead and slice this tomato to make some C4 ketchup, which we'll microwave so that we can make some nice fresh orange juice. And last but not least, we'll throw our cans of chili dust into the pot here, turn around and close our eyes for 20 seconds, and bam, here's our pot of chili. Now that we have our 3 main ingredients, we just toss them into the blast chiller for a few seconds, and now we have a purple key. Yeah, I'm not just a streamer, I'm also a professional chef. There's another door that leads to what is presumably the piano puppet's room, which has some very chic and modern decor. We check out his rad gaming PC that's running Windows Cardboard Edition and do a little bit of gaming. Is that it? That's the game. Game number 2 is Jump Game. Okay. Car game. Honestly, yeah, this is better than modern games. Sorry. This is better than modern game. It doesn't have loot boxes. It doesn't have microtransactions. It doesn't have battle passes. It doesn't have gacha. It's just gameplay. We also see a few wholesome photos of his puppet friends, and somebody really needs to teach Goblet about selfie angles. Did I mention that Arnold is also a poet? Fish, 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 fish. At this point, we have to find some puzzle pieces to place into a device in the central room, so I loot this chest using our newly cooked key and grab one of the pieces. We got a puzzle piece. Okay.
Real looker here. Mommy must be proud.
Gordon's fucking rude. And another chest with another puzzle piece. We find piece number 3 in a drawer back in the starting room while being harassed by 2 puppets who made me feel like I was looping in Dead by Daylight. In this same area is a bookcase that unlocks with our purple key, leading us to an indoor pool with poorly scribbled water, followed by a puzzle room. For this puzzle, we had to press a series of buttons in the correct order based on an artwork we saw earlier in the zone. Thanks to my amazing memory and definitely not chat's help, we score puzzle piece 4. The following room is a luxurious outdoor seating area that has a great reference to a recent horror film called The Menu. Man, the developers of this game just have great taste. Get it? Taste? Menu? Food themes? Haha. But really, it makes me happy to see the devs referencing so many other cool works of art in this game. So we head back to Arnold and finish the puzzle, which lights up the stage and allows us to see the musician in all of his red blob-like glory. Arnold requests a duet with Gordon, and by requests, I mean he forcibly drags Gordon over to the piano, and we get a nice hairy-armed serenade. Arnold is pleased by this, and he allows us to raise the platform up to the next area. Bye, Arnold. After trudging through the sewers, surviving a set full of angry puppets, almost getting eaten by a 3-dimensional Pac-Man lady, feeding dogs in a park, killing a giant pink wall that there was no explanation for, and navigating a cardboard dungeon, we're finally at the roof of the hotel. Time to shut down the broadcast tower. Yeah, I guess I should have assumed it wouldn't be that easy. Since the button doesn't work, we have to manually climb up the tower, which includes an extremely long, unskippable ladder cutscene. Just when we're about to complete our final objective, the sock goblin himself shows up, Ricky. Ricky gives us one final speech where he begs Gordon not to shut off My Friendly Neighborhood, explaining that nobody is friendly to each other anymore and that people need the show to learn how to be friendly again.
Gordon, look at this city. The buildings are dark and the streets are empty. No one knows how to be a friendly neighbor.
He has a point.
It's a city of shuttered up hearts, and they need someone to let in the light.
Ultimately, Gordon ignores him and succeeds in shutting down the tower, but in a karmic twist, we get struck by lightning and are sent barreling down into a pit. We wake up in a backroomsy type of area where we see a Junebug puppet hunched over a wall. Wait, is she okay?
The heck?
The elevator back up is, of course, broken, and Ricky calls us from the phone booth. He explains that the puppets were never allowed to watch TV, but once their show got canceled, they got curious. They apparently watched TV shows that Ricky describes as mean, and this corrupted some of them, twisting them into unfriendly versions of themselves like the Junebug we just saw.
We'd never been allowed to watch television before, but after we got canceled, no one was around to stop us.
Okay.
So we turned on one of the old sets, expecting to see something amazing. But it wasn't amazing. It was mean. It felt like we were dying, Gordon. We all got a little twisted then, but some of us.
We moved forward and find ourselves in a defunct My Friendly Neighbor set with a sign that so aptly calls it the Unfriendly Neighborhood. I mean, the area's pretty spooky, but at least there aren't any enemies here. Fuck. Running from the mob of unfriendlies, we end up trapped in an area with whatever this is. We pull a lever in the area that starts to lower a gate and power the elevator, but the gate moves so slowly that we just have to loop this guy around until it's finished. I was honestly a bit disappointed with the design of this creature after how creepy the other unfriendlies looked. All of that tense buildup, and then we just get this derpy looking thing. I guess it's meant to be an amalgamation of different warped puppets, but I really think they could have made it look much scarier if they wanted to, especially since this area is supposed to heavily contrast with the lighthearted nature of the rest of the game. Once the gate is open, we run to the newly powered elevator and head back up to the hotel lobby where it all began. It's finally over. We finished what we came here to do. We shut down the MFN broadcast tower, and it's time to leave. I just get to drive away now, and nobody's gonna come interrupt.
Gordon, you're alive! I'm so proud!
Good. I'm leaving.
Yes, you should! Job well done, Gordon. Turned off our antenna and survived the unfriendly neighborhood. You're a handyman extraordinaire!
Don't mock me, Ricky.
Mock you? I would never. Oh, before you go, I was wondering if you'd do us a favor?
Oh?
You've been hanging around the studio. You know a little bit about our show.
Spit it out, Ricky.
I was wondering if you'd help run our studio.
What?
See, everything's really old and falling apart. Really beyond our ability to care for. And on the personal side, I think it's obvious that we need a bit of a guiding hand.
Are you kidding?
Gordon, do I look like a sock that would kid?
Ricky, I'm just a maintenance man. I don't know how to run a studio.
Oh, I think you can handle it. It can't be that hard.
What if you end up like them?
I don't think we're the ones you should be worried about, Gordon. Come on. Won't you be our neighbor?
My chat voted for me to pick yes here, which ends up with Gordon agreeing to help the puppets get My Friendly Neighborhood back on air.
Fine. We'll give it a shot.
Whoa, Gordon! I'm so glad! We will have such fun!
I'm not living here, though.
Well, we'll talk about that. Oh, Gordon, thank you. Thank you for being our friend. I am bursting at the seams. I must go tell the others at once. Tomorrow night, then?
No.
It's decided. Tomorrow night. See you later, Gordon. Arrivederci. Toodaloo. 23 skidoo. Ciao.
Well, Brian, what have you done this time? I helped the neighbors get a slot on public access TV. It was late night on weekdays. I don't think anyone watched it. Within a couple of weeks, though, word was starting to get out. Some people loved the show, some people hated it. That caught the network's attention. And by the end of the year, we had 3 channels wanting to sign for a whole season. At that point, I figured I had done my part. So I stopped showing up at the studio in the evenings. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to keep my head down.
Is that a Wendy's
I never told
Baconator
anyone I was
rapper? It
helping
looks like a
bring back the
Wendy's
show.
rapper.
But for some reason, it keeps bugging me. I can't forget about it. And some nights, I catch myself staring out the window, wondering what's happening in the neighborhood.
So that was My Friendly Neighborhood. The game really wasn't what I expected at all. I hyped the game up to my chat as being really spooky, and I guess I expected it to have some more dumb jump scare moments and tension, but what I got instead was a wholesome, lighthearted homage to the survival horror genre. And overall, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was one of my all-time favorite survival horror experiences, but it is definitely a unique game that is filled with soul. It really makes the game feel like a love letter to the things that the developers are passionate about, which includes the survival horror genre itself. The weapons in the game were also really cool. I thought the guns were really creative and included lots of neat detail, like being able to see the individual letters that launch out of the stenographer. Oh, and the voice acting for the puppets. I loved listening to them ramble. Some of their voice lines were absolutely insane in the best way possible. Each time I heard them talk, it seemed like they were saying something new, which is an impressive amount of voice lines. Me.
Then the fun part starts. Take your closest friend and separate all of their parts into little piles based on color. This will be what you make your crafts out of.
And you don't usually see that much dialogue for enemies in video games, so I appreciated this new take on enemy audio. It certainly reinforces the chaotic personalities of each individual puppet so that you see them as actual characters and not just enemy fodder. The optional side quests for each big puppet mascot were also interesting, although I definitely didn't do all of them. The concept is cute and it allows you to dynamically alter the game world by preventing them from antagonizing you while exploring. It's basically like the PG version of killing a boss to get it to stop chasing you around the map. Like, imagine if in Resident Evil 3, Jill could just walk up to Nemesis and be like, "Hey, that coat made out of garbage bags looks great on you, bestie. Slay." And then he just stops bothering you for the rest of the game. By the end of the game, I realized that I had no clue what our protagonist Gordon looked like, and despite my best Googling efforts, I found no fan art of him. So my chat tasked me with drawing my best interpretation of Gordon. I decided that sharing this masterpiece with you guys would be a great conclusion to this journey. Thank you for joining me on my playthrough of My Friendly Neighborhood. If you enjoyed the video, smack that subscribe button like you're Ray with a wrench. Bye guys.